Hello, welcome to the 225 Literary and Jury Charge. We're going to start out today with a selection from the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and this topic is Let Others Have the Glory. Okay, ready? There is something magical that happens to the human spirit, a sense of calm that comes over you when you cease needing all the attention directed toward yourself and instead allow others to have the glory. Our need for excessive attention is that ego-centered part of us that says, look at me, I'm special, my story is more interesting than yours. It's that voice inside of us that may not come right out and say it, but that wants to believe that my accomplishments are slightly more important than yours. The ego, that part of us that wants to be seen, heard, respected, considered special, often at the expense of someone else. It's the part of us that interrupts someone else's story or impatiently waits his turn to speak so that he can bring the conversation and attention back to himself. To varying degrees, most of us engage in this habit, much to our own detriment. When you immediately dive in and bring the conversation back toward you, you can subtly minimize the joy that person is having in sharing, and in doing so create distance between yourself and others. Everyone loses. The next time someone tells you a story or shares an accomplishment with you, notice your tendency to say something about yourself in response. Although it's a difficult habit to break, it's not only enjoyable but actually peaceful to have the quiet confidence to be able to surrender your need for attention and instead share in the joy of someone else's glory, rather than jumping right in and saying, once I did the same thing, or guess what I did today. Bite your tongue and notice what happens. Just say, that's wonderful, or please tell me more, and leave it at that. The person you are speaking to will have so much more fun, and because you are so much more present, because you are listening so carefully, he or she won't feel in competition with you. The result will be that the person will feel more relaxed around you, making him or her more confident as well as more interesting. You too will feel more relaxed because you won't be on the edge of your seat waiting for your turn. Obviously, there are many times when it's absolutely appropriate to exchange experience back and forth and to share in the glory and attention rather than giving it all away. I'm referring here to the compulsive need to grab it from others. Ironically, when you surrender your need to hog the glory, the attention you used to need from other people is replaced by a quiet, inner confidence that is derived from letting others have it. Okay, I have some jury charge for you. This is on condemnation proceedings. Ready? If the issue in this case is the constitutionality of the statutory provision made for taking the property, its constitutionality seems clear. If, as I assume to be the case, the issue is the constitutional sufficiency of the statutory 10-day notice by publication of the hearing to access the compensation for the land taken, I consider such a provision to be within the constitutional discretion of the law-making body of the state. In weighing the due process of condemnation procedure, some reasonable balance must be struck between the needs of the public to acquire the property and the opportunity for a hearing as to the compensation to be paid for the property. Just compensation is constitutionally necessary, but the length and kind of notice of the proceeding to determine such compensation is largely a matter of legislative discretion. The minimum notice required by this statute may be, or seem to some, to be inadequate or undesirably short, but it was satisfactory to the lawmakers of Kansas. It also has been upheld by the Supreme Court of Kansas and the United States Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. To proscribe it as violative of the federal Constitution fails to allow adequate scope to local legislative discretion. Accordingly, while not passing upon the desirability of the statutory requirement before us, I am not ready to hold that the Constitution of the United States prohibits the people of Kansas from choosing that standard. Particularly, I am not ready to throw a nationwide cloud of uncertainty upon the validity of condemnation proceedings based on compliance with similar local statutes. Since 2009, it has been settled that notice by publication in condemnation proceedings to take and to fix the value to be paid for the land of a non-resident comports with due process. I agree with the court below and with the opinion of the Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit rendered in the comparable case of Collins versus Wichita, which came to our attention at the last term of court, and in which certiorari was denied. Therefore, I would affirm the judgment here. All right, now I'm going to give you some land description. This is just one paragraph, so I'm going to read it to you once and then read it to you again. Okay, ready? Now, plaintiffs move to dismiss complaint as to lot beginning at a point 192 feet north of the northwest corner of lot 19 in what is known as Victory Addition to the city of Fort Wayne, state of Indiana, thence east along a public alley 293.85 feet, thence north 256.56 feet, thence west 295.12 feet, then south to the place of beginning, except that portion now occupied by Anderson Avenue. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. Ready? Now, plaintiffs move to dismiss complaint as to lot beginning at a point 192 feet north of the northwest corner of lot 19 in what is known as Victory Addition to the city of Fort Wayne, state of Indiana, thence east along a public alley 293.85 feet, thence north 256.56 feet, thence west 295.12 feet, then south to the place of a beginning, except that portion now occupied by Anderson Avenue. Okay, I'm going to give you some medical. This is Heartline, and this is on magnesium. Okay, ready? Evidence regarding the importance of magnesium for cardiovascular health continues to accumulate. 7 previous trials involving a total of 1,300 patients with suspected heart attack showed that magnesium supplements reduce the number of deaths. Now, a large study from England has confirmed this finding. When magnesium was given during the early hours after suspected heart attack, survival improved by 24% over the first 4 weeks. At the Royal Infirmary, 2,316 patients admitted to the coronary care unit were randomly assigned to receive either intravenous magnesium or a placebo. Heart attacks were ultimately diagnosed in 65% of the patients. After 28 days, the death rate was 10.3% among those receiving the placebo and 7.8% among those given magnesium. This difference indicates that magnesium might lower mortality by about 25 deaths per 1,000 patients treated. Moreover, magnesium therapy reduced the incidence of left ventricular failure, an important predictor of survival and long-term quality of life. The other use of drugs, such as aspirin or clot-busting agents, did not diminish magnesium's benefits, although in some cases the magnesium infusions caused side effects, such as flushing of the skin or slowed heart rate. None of these problems were serious. Based on this study, magnesium may become routine therapy during heart attacks, especially since the benefits of magnesium infusion are about the same as those afforded by other heart attack medications, such as aspirin, or beta blockers, but with less risk involved. Additional research will be needed to determine the mechanism responsible for magnesium's beneficial effects and how this mineral may interact with other proven therapies in order to target specific patient populations likely to be helped. All right. I've got actually this is a speech from Cher. It's Cher's eulogy for Sonny Bono. And this was delivered on January 9th, 1998 in Palm Springs, California. Ready? Please excuse my papers, but I've been writing this stupid eulogy for the last 48 hours, and of course I know that this would make Sonny really happy. It's like Den said, he got the last laugh. So because I've had to write some of it down doesn't mean that I'm unprepared. It just means that I'm over-prepared and that this is probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. Don't pay any attention to me crying. This is probably going to happen from time to time. And I also know that he is someplace loving this Also, I have to wear the glasses that I made so much fun of him. I called him Mr. Magoo. I said, you've got to get some better glasses. I don't care if you're Republican or not. You've got to look cooler than this. So now I have to wear the glasses that I make fun of him for saying. There are a couple of things. I want to tell some stories, but there are a couple of things I really want to get perfect for him. So I have to read. Some people were under the misconception that Sonny was a short man, but he was heads and tails taller than anyone else. He could see above the tallest people. He had a vision of the future and just how he was going to build it, and his enthusiasm was so great that he just swept everybody along with him. Not that we knew where he was going, but he just wanted to be there. He was also successful at anything he ever tried. Not the first time he tried, maybe, but he just kept going. If he really wanted something, he kept going until he achieved it. Once he told me that when he was a teenager, he got his nose broken 6 times because he used to get into fights with guys that were much bigger than him. And he said that they would just be beating the crap out of him and would just be keep going back and going back and going back. I said, well, why? And he said, well, because eventually I would just wear them down. And if you know him, we all got worn down. Some people thought that Sonny wasn't very bright, but he was smart enough to take an introverted 16-year-old girl and a scrappy little Italian guy with a bad voice and turn them into the most successful and beloved couple of this generation. And some people thought that Sonny wasn't to be taken seriously because he allowed himself to be the butt of the jokes on the Sonny and Cher show. What people don't realize is that he created Sonny and Cher, and he knew what was right for us, He just always knew the right thing, and he wanted to make people laugh so much that he had the confidence to be the butt of the joke because he created the joke. When I was 16 years old, I met Sonny, Salvador Philip Bono, and for the first time I ever saw him, he walked in this room, and I had never seen anything like him before in my life because he was Sonny way before we were Sonny and Cher. He had this thing about him. He walked into this room, and I swear to God I saw him, and like everybody else in this room was just washed away in this soft focus filter, kind of like when Maria saw Tony at the dance. And I looked at him, and he had this weird hairdo between Caesar and Napoleon. As a matter of fact, one of the first things that he ever told me was that he was a descendant of Napoleon and that his father had shortened the name to Bono when he came to this country, but that he didn't want to make too big a deal out of this. Now you have to realize at this time he was talking to a girl who thought that Mount Rushmore was a natural phenomenon, so we were definitely a marriage made in heaven. I lied to him about how old I was. I've told this story, but somehow it always keeps coming back. I told him that I was 18, and of course I wasn't. I was the most bizarre 16-year-old that you probably would come across. I had all kinds of phobias and all kinds of insecurities and all kinds of energies that just couldn't be harnessed, except Sonny saw something, and I didn't have a place to stay. And he said, you can come and live with me because I have twin beds, and really, I don't find you attractive. I didn't really know how to take it, but I was really glad to have a place to stay. And when people would call or come over and say, "Who's that girl?" "Oh, that's just Cher. We spent this whole time together, and I was just Cher. I was this kid, and he kind of took care of me. I told my mom I was living with a stewardess, and every time that my mom would call, I always said, 'Mom, call me before you come over.' Every time my mom would call, I'd grab all of Sonny's clothes and would run down the street and throw all of his clothes into my girlfriend's living room window. And I lost most of his clothes that year. One time he came into the house and he had his jockey shorts in his hand, and he said, 'Cher, you've just got to stop doing this. I found these on the street.' So nothing happened with us romantically until my mom made me move out. When I was packing my things, we both just looked at each other and we started crying, and I didn't even know why. And then I just realized once I was there that I just missed him so much. I was so used to him being a part of my life, and I also had to tell him at that time that I really wasn't 18, that I was 17, but I was about to turn 18. And when we were crying, he actually cried too. I said, well, I'm not 17 about to turn 18. I'm 16 about to turn 17. But I can't go through the rest of my life without you. So if my mother threatens to put you in jail, could you just do it anyway? So my mother kept threatening him all that year. But then I turned 18 and everything was all right. I wanted to close, but I wanted to tell everyone and the family how proud I am of what he made himself after we were separated and his accomplishments. And I know that a person just doesn't decide to become a congressman in the middle of their life and then be one. But it's just so typical of Sonny to do something so crazy like that. And also it puts my mind at peace to know that in the end of his days that he had such a wonderful family life. And I know how much he loved Mary and his kids, and I know how much they loved him. And also I know how much he loved his friends. He was the greatest friend. If you'd seen our house for the last 5 days, Mary's house for the last 5 days, we can't get rid of everybody. Everybody is just there, you know, and it's the way you would have wanted it. He would have been in the middle cooking, not eating, just tasting and making everybody else eat. So the last thing I want to say is, when I was young, there was this section in the Reader's Digest. It was called The Most Unforgettable Character I've Ever Met. And for me, that person is Sonny Bono. And no matter how long I live or who I meet in my life, that person will always be Sonny for me. All right. I'm going to read from Awaken the Giant Within. Continue on. Here we go. You can learn to make changes in your life, overcome a fear or a phobia, increase the quality of a relationship, or overcome your pattern of procrastinating. If you've read Unlimited Power, you've already learned many of them. You'll find that there are key leverage points within your life that, if you make one small change, will literally transform every aspect of your life. In this book, you will learn a series of simple and specific strategies for addressing the cause of any challenge and changing it with the least amount of effort. For example, it might be hard for you to believe that merely by changing one word that is part of your habitual vocabulary, you could immediately change your emotional patterns for life, or that by changing the consistent questions that you consciously or unconsciously ask yourself, you could instantly change what you focus on and therefore what actions you take every day of your life. Or that by making one belief change, you could powerfully change your level of happiness. Life is a gift, and it offers us the privilege, opportunity, and responsibility to give something back by becoming more. Decisions, the pathway to power. Man is born to live and not to prepare to live. Maybe you remember when Jimmy Carter was still the president of the United States, or maybe you don't. The empire was striking back. Yoda and Pac-Man were the rage, and nothing came between Brooke Shields and her Calvins. And everything had to come to power in Iran and held our fellow Americans hostage. In Poland, an electrician from the shipyards named Lesh did the unthinkable. He decided to take a stand against the communist hold. He led his co-workers in a strike, and when they tried to lock him out of his place of work, he simply climbed over the wall. A lot of walls have come down since then, haven't they? Do you remember hearing the news that John Lennon was murdered? Do you remember when Mount St. Helens erupted, leveling 150 square miles? Did you cheer when the underdog U.S. hockey team beat the Soviets and went on to win the Olympic gold medal? More importantly, a decade can pass quickly, can't it? Now, maybe we should be asking ourselves, how am I going to live my next 10 years of my life? How am I going to live today in order to create the tomorrow I'm committed to? What am I going to stand for from now on? What's important to me right now? And what will be more important to me in the long term? What actions can I take today? And what will shape my ultimate destiny? You see, 10 years from now, you will surely arrive. The question is where? Who will you have become? How will you live? What will you contribute? Now is the time to design the next 10 years of your life. Not once they're over. We must seize the moment. We're already immersed in the early part of a new decade, and we've ended the final years of the 20th century. Now, will you be pleased when you look back on the last 10 years or would you be perturbed or delighted or disturbed? In the beginning of 1980, I was a 19-year-old kid. I felt alone and frustrated. I had virtually no financial resources. There were no success coaches available to me, no successful friends or mentors, no clear-cut goals. I was floundering and fat. Yet within a few short years, I discovered a power that I used to transform virtually every area of my life. Once I'd mastered it, I used it to revolutionize my life in less than a year. It was the tool I used to dramatically increase my level of confidence and therefore my ability to take action and produce measurable results. I also used to take back my control of my physical and well-being and permanently rid myself of 38 pounds of fat. Through it, I attracted the woman of my dreams, I married her, and created the family I desired. I used this power to change my income from subsistence level to over $1 million a year. It moved me from my tiny apartment where I was washing my dishes in the bathtub because there was no kitchen to my family's current home, the Del Mar Castle. This one distinction took me from feeling completely alone and insignificant to feeling grateful for the new opportunities to contribute something to millions of people around the world. And it's a power I continue to use every single day of my life to shape my personal destiny. Okay, that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 225 class. Have a great day.